Mr. Trump, let's talk about Melania, shall we? The audience reacted quietly. Trump's face stayed calm, but his eyes became sharp. He knew what Myers was trying to do. Myers leaned forward. Some people say your wife is only a trophy, just a pretty face with no real value. What do you say to that? The room went silent. Even the audience gasped softly, but Trump did not look nervous. He leaned forward, gave a small smile, and answered with words that would leave Myers speechless. Stay tuned until the end. I hope you love it. The studio audience, made up of both liberals and conservatives, sat nervously, waiting for something big to happen. Donald Trump, a man who had been in the news for many years, sat across from Myers. He looked calm and relaxed. Trump had done thousands of interviews before, some friendly, some not, but nothing had ever made him nervous. He fixed his tie as Myers started the interview with calm questions. They talked about important topics like the economy, policies, and the upcoming election. Trump answered with confidence, giving quick and smart replies that kept the audience interested. But Myers wasn't here just to talk about politics. He was waiting for the perfect time to ask a difficult question. As the interview went on, Myers's tone changed. He became more serious. He leaned forward and looked through his notes. Let's talk about your wife, Mr. Trump, Myers said with a sly smile. The audience murmured quietly. Everyone knew that when people talked about Melania Trump in interviews, it was usually something negative. Trump stayed still, but his face became a little more serious. He knew this question was coming. Myers continued in a rude tone. Some people say Melania is just a trophy wife, a model with no real talent. They say she stays in your shadow and hasn't done anything important. The audience gasped. Even for Myers, this question was very bold. Some people in the crowd whispered to each other. Others sat still, waiting to see what Trump would say. The tension in the room was very strong. It felt like something big was about to happen. For a moment, Trump just stared at Myers. He didn't say anything. The silence grew longer. Myers smiled, thinking he had trapped Trump. But what happened next? No one expected it. The room felt still, like time had stopped. The live audience barely breathed. Their eyes moved between Jonathan Myers and Donald Trump. Trump sat without moving. His face showed no emotion. He didn't frown, didn't raise his eyebrows. He just stared. The silence between them grew longer and heavier. Myers thought he had Trump trapped. He leaned in with a small smile, thinking Trump had no answer. Let's be honest, Mr. Trump, Myers said with a rude tone. Melania is beautiful, yes, but people say she is only there to smile for the cameras, that she doesn't really do much, that she's not very smart. The audience made quiet sounds. Some felt uncomfortable. Others waited to see what would happen next. Even Myers fans looked uneasy. Trump took a deep breath and slowly tapped his fingers on the desk. He could say many things. He had faced worse insults and harder questions, but this was different. This wasn't about him. This was about Melania, his wife. He knew how hard she worked behind the scenes. The media never really understood her. Slowly, Trump leaned forward. He put both hands on the desk. His famous small smile returned. Jonathan, he said calmly, but his voice was strong. Have you ever heard of 5 languages? Myers blinked. He looked confused. What do you mean? Trump didn't wait. Melania speaks 5 languages, Jonathan. How many do you speak? The audience laughed and clapped loudly. Even some people who liked Myers laughed. Myers looked nervous. He moved in his chair. Trump didn't let him finish. Let me guess. Just English. Maybe a little French from your school days. Trump waved his hand like it didn't matter. That's the problem with people like you. You don't do your homework. You think if someone is beautiful, they are not smart. But Melania, she's smarter than half the politicians in Washington. The audience clapped and cheered loudly. Myers laughed awkwardly, trying to hide his nerves. Okay, but come on, Mr. Trump. What has she really done that is so impressive? Trump tilted his head. You don't know. He shook his head. You say you're informed, but you have no idea. Melania was the first lady in U.S. history to become a naturalized citizen. She worked as a model, a businesswoman, and has spent years helping children and fighting against bullying. Myers tried to speak, but Trump kept going. She started the Be Best campaign to help kids in this country, and she showed more class and grace than any first lady in recent history. The audience cheered louder. Some stood up and clapped. Myers moved nervously in his chair, realizing he had made a big mistake. But Trump wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Tell me, Jonathan, what has your wife done? Or wait, do you even have one?" The audience laughed loudly. Myers's face turned red. He opened his mouth but closed it again. He didn't know what to say. The power in the interview had completely changed. Trump sat back with a bigger smile. "Next time, Jonathan, do your research before you embarrass yourself on live TV." The audience cheered and laughed even louder, and just like that, Trump had won. The studio was full of noise. People clapped, cheered, and some even gasped as Trump gave his final words. Everyone knew this was not just an answer, this was a strong comeback. Jonathan Myers' face turned red. His confidence was gone. He thought he could trap Trump and embarrass him on live TV. But now he was the one struggling to speak. But Trump wasn't finished. When the clapping stopped, Trump leaned forward and looked straight at Myers. He had a small smile on his face that never left. "You see, Jonathan, people like you love to say rude things. You think if you say it with confidence, people will believe you. But here's the truth. You don't know anything about my wife." Myers cleared his throat and tried to stay calm. "Mr. Trump, I was only—" Trump raised his hand. No, you were not only doing anything, you were being rude." His voice was calm, but his words were sharp. The crowd whispered. They could see Myers was uncomfortable. Trump continued, "You called Melania a trophy wife, but you didn't say that she speaks 5 languages. You didn't talk about her charity work. You didn't mention that she stayed strong and respectful even when the media, people like you, attacked her." The audience clapped loudly again. Even some crew members behind the cameras nodded quietly. Myers forced a small smile. "All right, Mr. Trump, but surely you understand that some people feel she—" Trump shook his head and laughed softly. "No, Jonathan, I understand that people like you don't like when a conservative woman is smart, strong, and independent. That's the real problem, isn't it?" The smile left Myers's face. He opened his mouth, but Trump wasn't done. "You all loved Michelle Obama, right? You called her a strong, independent first lady. But when Melania did the same, you ignored her. When she visited hospitals, you said she was just posing for the cameras. When she started the Be Best campaign, you made fun of her accent instead of listening to her message." The audience went quiet. Trump waited for a moment and then gave his final words. "The truth is, Melania has done more good for this country than many people in Washington. The only reason you don't admit it is because she doesn't fit your story." Some people in the audience cheered and clapped. Others just sat there, shocked. Myers moved his papers nervously. This was not how he wanted the interview to go. He tried to take control. "Well, Mr. Trump, I think we both agree that public figures face questions." Trump smiled. "Oh, I love questions. I'm ready for them. But if you're going to talk about my wife, at least be ready." The audience laughed loudly. Trump leaned back, crossed his arms, and smiled. "Any more silly questions? Or are we done here?" The camera showed Myers' face. He looked defeated. And just like that, Trump had won. The energy in the studio had changed completely. What started as an attack on Trump had turned into a lesson in control. Jonathan Myers, who was usually a confident host, now looked like a man trying to stay calm. His smile was gone. His body showed he was nervous. He moved his papers, cleared his throat, and tried to continue. But it was too late. Trump had taken control, and the audience knew it. For a moment, Myers looked at the camera, hoping to change the topic, but Trump wasn't going to let him. "Come on, Jonathan. You brought up my wife. Let's keep talking about her," Trump said. His voice was calm but sharp. The audience laughed, clapped, and cheered. Myers gave a small, forced smile, but everyone could see he was uncomfortable. "Mr. Trump, let's talk about something more serious," he said, looking through his notes. Trump raised his eyebrow. "Oh, now you want to move on. Maybe next time you'll think twice before saying rude things." The audience cheered even louder. Myers took a deep breath. He looked frustrated. All right, let's talk about the economy," he said, trying to laugh. Trump nodded. "Yes, that's what you should have asked me about first." The audience laughed and clapped again. Myers had lost. There was no way to fix it now. And soon, the internet would make sure everyone saw what had happened. The interview went on, but the most important moment had already happened. Trump sat back in his chair, calm and in control. Myers tried to ask more questions, but he was nervous. The audience was still thinking about what they had just seen. At the same time, people were already posting clips online. Viewers at home rewound the video, saved the moment, and shared it on social media. In minutes, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube were full of the clip. One headline said, "Trump shuts down host after insult to Melania, must watch." Another said, "Donald Trump embarrasses TV host in heated interview." Memes filled the internet, showing Myers smiling before the question and looking shocked after Trump's answer. The clip spread fast. News channels started talking about it. Some said Trump was smart and strong for defending Melania. Others said he was too harsh. But one thing was clear: Trump had won. And Jonathan Myers, he would never forget this moment. By the next morning, the internet was full of news about the interview. The clip of Trump's answer had millions of views already. It was everywhere on social media and news channels. Some TV networks said Trump was too aggressive, but even they agreed he was in control the whole time. Trump's supporters were happy. They said it was one of his best interviews. "This is why Trump wins. He never gives up," they said. But Jonathan Myers, he stayed quiet. Hours later, he finally posted on Twitter, "Interviews can be surprising." Last night was one of those times. It was a weak answer and people didn't believe him. The comments were harsh. "You got embarrassed on your own show." "Hope you learned your lesson, Jonathan. Next time, be ready." Some media people tried to support Myers and said Trump was too mean, but it didn't matter. The big story wasn't about Myers anymore. It was about how Donald Trump turned a hard interview into a big win. The moment was over, but no one would forget it. Trump went into an interview that was supposed to hurt him, but he came out even stronger. His answer to Myers' insult about Melania was not just fast. It showed how to take control. The media tried to change the story, but it was clear. Trump had won. Now we want to hear from you. Did Trump handle it the right way, or do you think he should have answered differently? Tell us in the comments below. If you liked seeing Trump stand up to the media, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss a moment like this. Because sometimes the truth is louder than the critics.